1999 Super Bowl. We've got flavor in football, 2 hours on the Super Saturday edition of Monday Night Countdown. Coming up next, so settle in and enjoy. John Elway and Dan Reeves. Together, they reached the Super Bowl 3 times, but they parted under bitter terms. They returned to the Super Bowl, only this time on opposite sides of the field. For Elway, it's a stage he knows very well. He's always had the magic touch. And 1 year ago, Elway made time stand still. But with time winding down on his career, Elway's Broncos face their toughest challenge, repeating as Super Bowl champs. Now is the time for a new leader to step forward. For Dan Reeves, it's been a season of personal triumph. Less than 2 months removed from heart surgery, his Falcons have reached the Super Bowl for the first time ever. They are no longer league laughingstock. It's been a season of rejuvenation. The stage is set. 2 teams share one goal. A championship is at stake. A full moon is out on a wind-blown, warm, gorgeous late January night in Miami, Florida, and we welcome you to the night before the last Super Bowl of the century. Welcome to the Super Saturday edition of Monday Night Countdown. With you for the next 2 hours, Mike Tirico with a dozen buddies just hanging around to talk football and get you ready for the game. Of course, Tom Jackson, he in the 2 Super Bowls, Sterling Sharp proudly wearing the ring given to him by his brother last year's Super Bowl. We are also joined by our regulars on the show, Chris Mortensen and Ron Jaworski. Jaws, of course, the starting QB at Super Bowl 15. See those guys throughout the show. Tommy, let me start with you. Let's go around the horn, get thoughts from the guys, because this is, I guess if you've been a part of this as a player, this night has special, unique memories.
Well, every player has his favorite part of Super Bowl weekend. This was one of mine, the night that you really begin to focus on the game itself. Both Mike Shanahan and Dan Reeves will isolate their football team so they have a chance to think about nothing but football between now and game time. A new little twist by Mike Shanahan. He moved the families away from the players, but again, they want total focus on the game. Sterling, when you start thinking about a East Coast Super Bowl, certainly the game not going to start till 6:25. You start playing the game mentally. All of a sudden, you can find yourself exhausted by game time. You have to be able to relax.
Talking to players and coaches about that, the one thing they mentioned to me was, you look at all the talk that went on between the coaches and the players this week. So the question is, am I ready to do something great? Am I ready to go out and play the football game of my life so I don't experience the feeling that the losing team in that other locker room has to go through? When you look at what these players and coaches have put themselves through for 18 weeks, you have to say this is a special moment. You have to be ready for every opportunity that is presented in front of you. Ron Jaworski, you've been there. You were ready for it. Tell me something else that I can look for the players in tomorrow's football game.
Sterling, there are 2 critical elements to this Super Bowl, experience and momentum. And clearly the Denver Broncos, the defending Super Bowl champions, have the experience. They know what it takes to win. But momentum is on the side of the Atlanta Falcons. They have won 11 in a row. And Chris Chandler is a hot quarterback. He started in 10 of those 11 wins. And in those 10 wins, he completed 64% of his passes, Mort, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 16 yards per completion. He is a hot QB right now.
Well, there were a lot of clues this was going to happen. Some of us chose to ignore them. I'm one of those front runners like to go to all the Super Bowl contenders during training camp. So I visited Jacksonville in August, and of course they were a Super Bowl contender. And Tom Coughlin on the day I visited was not in a good mood, and believe it or not, Tom can be in a good mood now and then. The reason he wasn't in a good mood is that the Atlanta Falcons had been there working against the Jaguars for 2 days. And the Atlanta Falcons basically kicked their rear ends during those 2 days. I chose to believe that the Jaguars had bad 2 days. In fact, the Atlanta Falcons had a good 2 days and were then a Super Bowl contender in the making. Mike, I plead ignorance on the Atlanta Falcons.
But you are not a front runner. Come clean with us, Mort, will you?
I'm not.
Mort was with the Falcons all week, and he visited with Dan Reeves earlier today. That conversation is one of the items on the docket for this evening. Also had some great features. Tommy's conversation with John Elway. TJ was there for John's first game. Looks ahead to what's likely his last. Chris Chandler talks about the matchup with our 4-time Super Bowl quarterback, Mr. Jim Kelly. You know Jaws brought his playbook to the Super Bowl, which will show the reason you see those long Terrell Davis TD runs and why Jamal Anderson's running ability might not be the only way the Falcons use him against the Broncos. We're also going to go on the field with Mike Shanahan to hear how the last super step sounded from Mile High. That's all ahead, but first, the sports news of the day. Here is the weather. We've never, ever had a significant rainfall during a Super Bowl game. Sure, some rain the morning of the game a few years. The last 2 times we've been in South Florida, some light sprinkles, but forecast for tomorrow, chance of an occasional shower during the game with a temperature in the mid-70s. Game time is 6:25 Eastern. Well, what about the final day of preparations for both teams? Ed Werder's been on that patrol all day. Ed?
Mike, Dan Reeves took the Falcons up to Pro Player Stadium for their final practice. A brief walkthrough, went through about 8 plays on defense, approximately the same number on offense. The concentration was on plays that had given him trouble all week. Mike Shanahan with the Broncos also took his team to Pro Player Stadium for walkthrough. Interestingly, they did not go through the 15-play offensive script they'll use to start the game because of security reasons. Now, when the Broncos got here for their first defensive meeting, defensive back Ray Crockett told me the defensive coordinator, Greg Robinson, got up in front of the team and said, "Hey, guys, Chris Chandler is for real." Now, before this season, the only thing questioned more than Chandler's ability, his durability. This season, he's proven both.
This year, he impressed all of us, not only the team, but all of you. Because if you hear that you're not durable, that, you know, you hear the name Crystal Chandelier and all those things, it hurts. It hurts. And he knows that for us to be successful, he needs to be healthy.
After the contract got done this year and the commitment made to me by the front office and Dan, they kind of put the 5 stars on my shoulder. And then it was up to me to go out and be accountable for my job, play well, and lead the team where I've done.
The Broncos constantly attacked Brett Favre in last year's Super Bowl using zone blitzes to confuse him. They intend to pressure Chandler to take advantage of his big game inexperience. But the quarterbacks demonstrated plenty of nerve.
This quarterback will stay in the pocket. He's going to take your shots, your blitz shots, your regular, normal rush shots, and he's still going to hang in the pocket. So whenever you have a quarterback that does that, it's hard to intimidate him.
I have never lacked a question this guy's toughness. Some quarterbacks you do. Not this guy. He stays alive in the pocket. He sees an opportunity to run, he runs. He doesn't always run for the sideline.
For him to stand in the pocket after all the injuries he's been through in his career and take some of the shots that I've seen on film, I mean, it's incredible because he's still making a play. I mean, he's taking a hit in the mouth, but he's getting an 80-yard touchdown out of it.
One thing I found out on film that he's very intelligent. He looks corners, he looks safeties off, and he's not afraid to throw his body around.
He's just been able to hold up better than he has in the past. That's one of the reasons why he's been banged up, is because his regard for his body is not number one.
He's a very, very tough quarterback, very competitive. One of those type of guys that if you doubt him or think he can't get the job done, that's when he burns you the most.
When he was banged up, he'd come out and come right back in. He's a competitor. He wanted to win. He wanted to win, and honestly, Chris Chandler is probably the driving force for us being in the Super Bowl.
The other leadership figure on this team is Reeves, who says he feels like his team is really well prepared for this game, but he admits he's never really had a sense for predicting how well his team will play on Sunday. He set a very relaxed tone today. In addition to the players going to the stadium, a busload of family members went up. Reeves let them take pictures with the players at the stadium. Mike, as far as injuries go, Lester Archambault and Brian Kozlowski practiced all week. They'll start, as will cornerback Ronnie Bradford.
Both teams sounding healthy, Ed, thanks. Other than the game, the other big Super Saturday news is always the new class going into the Hall of Fame. Debate never more intense than this year. Would Lawrence Taylor, the greatest defender of this generation, get in the Hall despite his off-the-field drug and legal problems? The answer was yes, but not unanimously. Despite more than a half hour of sometimes contentious debate, the board of 36 selectors did admit Taylor, although he didn't reach on the first criteria, appearing on 80% of the ballots. He's in because you have to have a minimum of 4 modern-era players per induction class. So when we show up in Canton in August, LT is going in. You know the numbers: 9 times All-Pro, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Jaws, he sacked you and Randall Cunningham more than any other victim, making you a true expert analyst on this subject. Your reaction to LT's selection not being unanimous?
Mike, he was on my back so many times, most fans thought my number was 56. But I'm absolutely shocked that it was not a unanimous vote. There were 36 votes. Whoever didn't vote for him must be a moron. I mean, he could wreck a defense on offense. His life is a wreck. Yes, we all know that. But he was the biggest impact defensive player to come into the game and maybe to ever play the game. I mean, he is all over me, as you can see. When you played against Lawrence Taylor, you had to come out of the huddle. You had to find number 56. You had to slide your line to him. You had to keep it back into him. He absolutely dictated what you did as far as an offensive game plan, Tommy.
Well, Jaws, he was 6'4½", 245 pounds, unusual speed and quickness for a guy that size. But I think the biggest thing that he brought to the game was aggressiveness. He was a crazy man on the football field. It had nothing to do with his personal life. And I don't often say this, but on a personal level, I am absolutely thrilled to see this guy making his trip to camp.
Very interesting yesterday, Paul Tagliabue came out and publicly said he absolutely supported Taylor going in, and he will. In addition, also getting the honor of induction, some great names and some very familiar guys, like Eric Dickerson, All-American career, part of the Pony Express at SMU with our buddy Craig James, record-setting rookie season in '83, 84, the all-time NFL record, 2,105 yards. And the top all-time pass-catching tight end, Ozzie Newsome, 662 catches, 47 of them touchdowns, 13 seasons, all 198 games with the Cleveland Browns. And a couple of offensive linemen added to the list. Guards, Tom Mack, 13 seasons with the Rams, never missed a game. And Billy Shaw, who led the offensive lines of the AFL title teams in Buffalo. Making it down to the very final cut, Lynn Swann, again left out of the hall, and Howie Long coming up just shy in his first year of eligibility. The induction ceremony August 7th in Canton on ESPN. No question, in 5 years, John Elway will be a guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famer. Or will it be 6 years? That question answered by this one. Is this Elway's last game? He talks with Tom Jackson later in Monday Night Countdown.
It'd be nice to win this last Super Bowl and then contemplate what I'm going to do next year, whether I'm going to come back or not. And if I did, come back and win a third one in a row, and something that nobody had ever done before. And then be able to ride away in the sunset and nice and healthy to where I can enjoy my kids.
And spend time watching TD. We'll show you the play to watch for in tomorrow's championship game. Also check out the second best runner in the league this year is tomorrow Jamal's turn in the sunshine. And next, the Swami joins us. Chris Berman takes us down Miami's Super Sunday memory lane. Monday Night Countdown rolls on from Miami. At the top of this list, together those two cities have hosted nearly half of the 33 Super Sundays. Chris Berman now relives Miami past memories.
For the 8th time, the National Football League has chosen the city of Miami as the site for its biggest football game. If history is any indication, and it usually is, the city and the time is ripe for yet another great Super Bowl. To some of us, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it was 30 years ago that the Jets battled the Colts right here at the Orange Bowl in Super Bowl III. It was arguably the most important game in the history of the NFL, considering that the American Football League's first two representatives in the big game, the Chiefs and Raiders, were stopped by a combined score of 68-24 by Vince Lombardi's Packers. New York figured to have little chance against the Baltimore squad that lost just once all year, then pounded the Browns 34-0 in the NFL title game. But Jets quarterback Joe Namath guaranteed a win and made it stick, making history in the process thanks to a 16-7 upset, giving the AFL the much-deserved credibility it had been looking for. 10 years later here at the Orange Bowl in Super Bowl XIII, we saw the first super rematch. Chuck Noll's Steelers and Tom Landry's Cowboys battled in Miami for the second time in just 4 years. The winner would claim a then unprecedented third Super Bowl title. Each team's roster and coaching staff was chock full of future Hall of Famers, including Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Roger Staubach, and Tony Dorsett. Bradshaw riddled the Cowboys with 4 touchdown passes, but it was a drop TD by Hall of Fame tight end Jackie Smith that ranks as one of the most infamous plays in Super Bowl history. When the dust had settled right here in the end zone, Pittsburgh had again prevailed, this time 35-31. 10 years later, when the Super Bowl returned to Miami, Super Bowl XXIII was played up the road a piece at Joe Robbie Stadium. The game was far from perfect, but what it lacked in beauty, it more than made up for in pure drama. Down 16-13 with 3:20 to go, 49ers quarterback Joe Montana worked his magic, driving San Francisco 92 yards, stopping only to notice actor John Candy in the stands. Montana capped it off with a 10-yard touchdown toss to John Taylor with 34 seconds remaining, giving Bill Walsh his third Super Bowl title in what proved to be his final game as the Niners head coach. They say that good things come in threes. In Super Bowls here in Miami, good things always come with a 3.
All right, boom, we will see you tomorrow on Sunday Countdown. Next 4 Super Bowls, in case you're planning ahead, we go to Atlanta on ABC next year, then Tampa. New Orleans gets its 9th. San Francisco scheduled for January 2003. They have some stadium issues out there. Don't be surprised if that becomes San Diego before the year is over. As we roll on next to quarterbacks, Jim Kelly sits down with Chris Chandler, the Atlanta QB, sets his place in history against the Vikings in the title game, getting set to take on a quarterback who made his mark in a championship game a dozen years ago. And Boomer Esiason.
Like this. To get a chance to go, individually thank one of those guys at a time, it's kind of special for both of us.
I love you, man. Dang, I love you.
Take care. We want to thank you, though.
Just thanking one fan at a time. We, like I said, we had a really good year, and I think our fans did too. It's a great game. We got great fans.
South Beach. Those who have visited there this week told us it's been fun. Elway, Shanahan, Reeves, this is not the first to get together down here in Miami. Week 5 last year. September in Atlanta. Terrell Davis untouched as the Broncos go up 23-0. Falcons do come back in the 4th quarter, despite the fact that Chris Chandler was injured, knocked out of this game. His ankle rolled over on. He left the game. They did come back to make it close. 29-21 was the final score of the matchup. Well, Chris Chandler left that game like he's left many others. You talk about Chandler, you talk about John Elway. Let's take a look at the quarterbacks in this game. By comparison, the lone similarity, both drafted by the Colts. Elway 5 years earlier. John with 1 team his whole time, Chris with 6, and Chandler has played for 7 different coaches. What a lot of people forget, Chris Chandler, the rookie quarterback, replaced Jack Trudeau with the Colts and went 9-4 as a starter. He was the best rookie quarterback of that season. No quarterback has started for more teams 6. In his 10 seasons, Chandler has been a part of 2 winning seasons, his first year and this year. Veteran of 4 Super Bowl quarterback starts, Jim Kelly visits with the man now mentioned in the same breath as John Elway.
Both are tremendous competitors. Both are extremely bright. Both understand the game. There's a lot of similarities in those guys.
He's had such a great career, and mine, I feel like, is really kind of now starting. I'd like to say someday that my career is very comparable to his, but at this point, they're not even close.
If both running games were shut down, Terrell Davis, Jamal Anderson, most everybody I've talked to are giving the edge to Atlanta Falcons because of Chris Chandler, not John Elway.
Well, someone mentioned something to me about that the other day, and I just thought, that's pretty retarded to discount John Elway in that fashion. I mean, you look at John Elway as kind of Michael Jordan. He might not do a lot until he has to, and then you got to look out.
How many games have you played against him? Come on now.
1, 2, 4.
Pretty good. That's pretty good memory. You start counting like that. Okay. 5 times and you won how many?
4. No, that's right. Last year we played. I've won 2 of them.
3.
I won 3?
3 out of 5.
The one I remember the most is the Monday night game my rookie year when we just ran Denver over back in '88. It was a 55-21 deal, and that was my first Monday night start and everything.
Wouldn't it be sweet if the same thing happened?
Well, I'll take 21-20 win. I don't care how it is.
Do you think if you had the supporting cast in the past that you have now, do you think you might have been to this game in prior years?
Well, I would have been, not probably my 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year. I didn't handle myself very well back then, but I think probably over the last 5 or 6 years, there would have been a chance of this happening. I think I've played better each year from about 5 years ago on, but you have to have a cast strength. You got to have some good players around you. But, I didn't handle myself very good in Tampa and Phoenix, some of the other places I've been, and it took some growing up on my part. But I think I would have had a chance the last few years at least.
How difficult was it to get to this point?
It was really difficult to get to this point. I started my rookie year, played against you in Indianapolis, and I thought, I'm going to be a Colt forever. And blowing my knee out the second year, it was an up and down, mostly down 5 or 6 years after that. And at that point, I never thought I'd be here. It was a lot of years, a lot of seasons of hanging in there, trying to play, backing up, trying to swallow your pride and just play football and wait your time out. And it took 11 long years to get to the playoffs and then finally get to the Super Bowl. But in a way, it was very rewarding doing it this way. And looking back at it now, I probably wouldn't trade it for any other way.
Well, Chris Mortensen, the Falcons wouldn't trade Chandler for anyone right now. You saw him today compared to the rest of the week. Would focus be a word to describe Chris Chandler on the eve of the Super Bowl?
Mike, that might be a little bit of an understatement. The guy I saw today was tunnel vision, straight ahead, no smiles. Hey, this guy was congenial, relaxed, having fun all week. Today, it was definitely game face time. I tell you what, though, what really impressed me is how he has captured his teammates. Ray Buchanan, Eugene Robinson, 2 Pro Bowl defensive backs, stopped Wednesday near the end of practice, and said they were just in awe of Chandler, that very few footballs touched the ground. This guy was zeroed in every time, Jaws.
Mort, I couldn't agree with you more. When you watch Chris Chandler, and I study him on the game tapes, he is at the top of his game. And let me give you a real-life example. They needed a touchdown against the Vikings in the championship game, down 27-20. This play may look routine, but watch a little shoulder bump right there. What that did, it drew up Corey Fuller, who had that responsibility to cover the bow out. That little shoulder roll to the back in the flat opened up the seam so he could stick the ball in there on a late drive, a 29-yard play that really got the Falcons going. Now, a lot of quarterbacks make that play when they're up by 14 points, but he made that play with the game on the line. These are the little things that Chris Chandler is now doing, and doing very well, Tommy.
Jaws, I like to describe Chris Chandler as a very tough guy who has to be because his body is so fragile. On those occasions when he's caught holding the football, the Broncos are going to try to get hits on him. Let's take an example. Tony Martin is a receiver who runs the deep routes, the goes. We take a look back here at the championship game. You see him hit the turf. He had to call a timeout to regroup his body physically. And in a Super Bowl, those are things that could cost you. I was talking about Tony Martin, a receiver who will run the deep routes. He will cause Chandler to hold on to the football. And what we know, Sterling, whether you're getting sacked and have the ball or whether you don't have the ball, you get hit, it hurts the same. This guy has to get up off the turf and make plays.
I think both of these quarterbacks are going to have 6 area opportunities to where they're going to take open shots. I mean, you take a look at games week in, week out. What you're going to see right here is the Falcons' Andre Crockett on John Elway. What you want to do is, as a flea flicker, you get a clean run at the quarterback, no hands up in the air, you take your shot. Now, John Elway is going to get up and finish this football game, but on the other side, watch Bill Romanowski zero in on Dan Marino. No hands up, trying to knock the football down, taking your shot at the quarterback. Let me tell you about these completions that you saw these 2 quarterbacks have in the first quarter. Those are incomplete or intercepted late in the fourth.
So you say important to take a shot at them early.
Early. Don't try and knock the ball down. Take your hit on the quarterback. Those guys get paid. They have shoulder pads. Hit them as many times as you can, Mike. My bad, Boomer.
Oh, yeah, it is your bad. Let me tell you something. Speaking true from a wide receiver who's out away from all the traffic. God.
We are joined by Boomer Esiason of ABC's Monday Night Football. We showed the Super Bowl 10 years ago. San Francisco and Montana coming back against you and the Bengals. What do you remember from that night before the Super Bowl game?
Well, the night before the Super Bowl game for us guys was very difficult. You see, we had Stanley Wilson, who was one of our better fullbacks on the football team, who fell into a drug-induced haze with cocaine. And Stan Weish came down and told us about that, and he basically shocked all of us. And I remember myself saying, uh-oh, there goes one of my security blankets. I think Chris Chandler, however, does not have to deal with that. You know, he has a great supporting cast. He's got a great running back in Jamal Anderson. And even more importantly, you know, this is an 11-year veteran who's been through the wars. As Tommy said, he's been injured. He's got up from those injuries. There's no worrying about him. He'll come out and he'll perform very well tomorrow, I guarantee you. And that's why I'm picking the Atlanta Falcons to win this game. Yes, I am.
Well, speak for a second to the differences that Chris Chandler's going to feel. When you stepped on the field for your first Super Bowl,
great.
Does you need a hit to kind of get you in the game?
You know, I think you want to hit, but you want to complete that first pass, which is the most important thing. You want to get all the butterflies out of your stomach. And like I said, this is not a young player. This is not a player who is finding his first go-round. This is his 6th team, 11 years, so he's certainly been through it. He's going to be excited tomorrow, but I'm sure he will perform to the best of his ability.
He's only played for one fewer coach than you did.
That's a guy, he certainly has experience.
Last thought on the Falcons. If this becomes a passing contest, Can Chris Chandler and the Falcons pass it well enough against this secondary?
Yeah, they can. And you were telling me earlier on, you know, Mike, that you read this week in the paper that actually Chris Chandler is playing better than John Elway. And maybe because they're asking him to do a little bit more. If the Atlanta Falcons throw on first down, that will give Chris Chandler a whole bunch of opportunities to make big plays. Now, if they run, and pass on third down, it's going to be awful difficult. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He certainly wants to throw on first down.
Well, Boomer, Chandler is symbolic, guys, of the quarterback story, guys who've had success this year. For more on that, here's Mitch Albom, the Detroit Free Press, with his Super Saturday Monday Night Minute.
Thanks, Mike. Chris Chandler has been with Indianapolis, Tampa Bay, Phoenix, Houston, Los Angeles, and now Atlanta. Most quarterbacks tire you out by chasing them. Chandler tires you out by reading his resume. But in many ways, he's the perfect symbol for this football season. A once stumped-on quarterback who finally found a home. Vinny Testaverde was written off until his rebirth with the Jets. Randall Cunningham was out of football until his rebirth with the Vikings. Chandler was seemingly always cut, traded, benched, or injured. But under Dan Reeves, he has blossomed into a top-rated passer and a Super Bowl starter. Maybe this proves it's the coach. Maybe this proves it's the supporting cast. But it definitely proves that giving up on a quarterback doesn't mean he's worthless. And there's more than a few quarterbacks in the NFL today who have made Chris Chandler, and not John Elway, their role model. Mike?
Mitch, thanks. Ahead on the show, why the other tight end in tomorrow's game could be the deciding factor. And we'll look at the place number 7 has earned in NFL history with his extraordinary numbers. Back with more of the Super Countdown after this.
15-1 regular season mark. Vince Tobin led the Arizona Cardinals to their first playoff win since the 1947 season. In Denver, Mike Shanahan and his Broncos flirted with perfection in defense of their Super Bowl crown. Dan Reeves turned the Atlanta Falcons around in 1998, leading them to their first Super Bowl. While in Dallas, Chan Gailey led the Cowboys back to another NFC East championship. One of these men will be named the 1998 Staples NFL Coach of the Year.
Hi, I'm Chris Myers, and thanks for being with us. Welcome to the 1998 Staples NFL Coach of the Year Award Show. The position of head coach in the National Football League is one of the roughest in all of sports. Since 1990, the average tenure of all head coaches hired is just 3 years. And that makes the accomplishments of those who succeed even more remarkable. Now we salute the one man who was designated by the fans as being the best, the 1998 Staples NFL Coach of the Year. We begin with a look at how the voting takes place and the 3 previous award winners.
For over 50 years, the game's greatest head coaches have been recognized by the media for individual achievements with their annual Coach of the Year award. In 1995, the National Football League took the voting directly to its fans. Using the league's internet site, NFL.com, the Staples Coach of the Year is the only postseason award of any major sport decided solely by fan voting. In 1995, the first award went to Philadelphia's Ray Rhodes, whose aggressive approach helped vault the Eagles into the playoffs in just his first year with the team.
We talked about what we had to do when we went out and did it today. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. But every man's a man fighting to get this thing done. Team wins. Big team wins for everybody.
Last season, Tampa Bay's Tony Dungy was recognized for the Buccaneers' remarkable turnaround, which saw them return to the playoffs after a 15-year absence. The 1997 award winner succeeded as the Bucs shed their losing image and set a winning foundation in Tampa Bay. When the 1998 Staples NFL Coach of the Year award show returns, the top 2 runners-up. by Staples, the office superstore. Low prices? Yeah, we got that. 1998 posed a great challenge for Denver's Mike Shanahan, coming off the Broncos' victory in Super Bowl 32.
Anytime you have success, it's always easy to get a little bit complacent in the offseason. Players not play as hard, coaches not coach as hard, and I feel like our players really handle the offseason well.
And the one thing we're going to have to do as a team is learn how to finish plays. But doing what we did today, man, was a farce. That's not the way we operate around here. You guys want to be a 500 football team? That's the way we're going right now. You guys got to pick it up. Man, we're going to have some adversity once it goes through the year on both phases of the ball. And what you do is you don't worry about somebody else. You do your job, and you do it as good as you possibly can do it, and then some. Let's do it the way we're supposed to do it.
The Broncos followed Shanahan's directive to the letter, playing with near flawless precision. Denver won its first 13 games behind a potent offense led by league MVP Terrell Davis, who rushed for over 2,000 yards.
45 points. Oh, look out! Goodbye! TD for TD.
Davis is saluting anybody that wants to salute him.
Well, the main thing is try to find a way to win. There's going to be some games where they're going to take away your passing game. Some days they're going to take away your running game. But the main ingredient is to find a way to win as a football team.
Shanahan's approach worked well, as only one team won more games during the regular season than the Denver Broncos. Knowing the road to the Super Bowl well, Shanahan kept his players happy while keeping them focused.
Okay, man, number one, that's hat week. Number two, we talked about the special teams having to step up, and you guys did exactly that. Great job stepping up. Number three, we talked about it from day one. The game's going to be like that. All of a sudden, we're playing our rear ends off. We get 14 points in the first quarter. We hit a lull in there. We come back, we got enough character to find a way to get the job done. That's a hell of a job as a team. We're going to have a lot more games like that. All of a sudden, we're going to win a game 10-7. We're going to win it 35-34. You got to find a way to win. Congratulations on the win. Let's enjoy it.
We look at it equated to there's a hill that we've got to take. And once we take that hill, we've got to crash through a wall. Once we crash through that wall, we have to take another hill. And the only way you can do that is to stay on the march. Focused, marching towards the championship.
In 1998, no championship march was as in step as that of Dennis Green's Minnesota Vikings, who dominated the league, compiling a stunning 15-1 regular season record.
Here's where we make it, guys, for the day. We set the tempo. A good deep kick, speed down the field, get your hits in. Go.
Short drop, looks left, fires, juggle, pick off, hit it all the way. It's the quarterback. Hitchcock to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, 35-30, 25-20, 15-10-5, a touchdown.
The Viking offense was as explosive as its defense, due in part to an eye-popping rookie.
All right, now see what's going on out here with Randy over the top.
Randy Moss was a controversial first-round pick, but his skills helped put the Vikings over the top.
You know what? If I had the #1 pick in the draft in 1998, I would have taken Randy Moss.
When that ball's in the air, the #1 thing you got to do is get it caught, no matter what. Get it caught and hold on to it. Make that damn official come right out of your hands after you score a touchdown. All right, Randy?
Now we have the total package, the TP. We have a guy that can go deep and stretch the field. We have Chris Carter, who can work shallow and go to his world-famous corners and out patterns one-on-one. And we had Jake Reed, who works over the middle at 6'4". So it was really an increase to what we were doing.
Be alert, pick it up inside, slam that door shut.
Green's Vikings simply overwhelmed opponents, and by season's end, they posted a league record 556 points scored.
What I've tried to do is protect the chemistry of the team. I've not wanted any players from somewhere else coming in and maybe taking a chance on disrupting that chemistry, and so far it's paid off for us.
Big thing. So all you got to do is make sure you ask yourself, did I do the very best I could do on every single play? Sometimes you're going to say no. Then you say, all right, what can I do this week to make sure that next week, every single play, I do the best job that I can. That's what it's going to come down to. We got to make sure that we play better across the board, one play at a time. Good job.
All right, Mike.
Coming up next, we introduce the 1998 Staples NFL Coach of the Year.
And you're going to tell us a really interesting story here.
He does, Mike, and you know, he's somebody who you could see from the shots before is still enormously popular in this area. People like to think of Mercury Morris as someone who carried the ball. He was somebody who averaged 5.1 yards a carry. He was someone who, they don't like to think of him as someone who spent 3.5 years in prison on a cocaine trafficking charge. Well, for the past 16 years, he's been trying to clear his name, claiming police entrapment. I recently walked the Orange Bowl with him, not 1,000 yards more far away from where he was incarcerated. Okay, where on the field are your strongest memories?
The first time I ever touched the ball in the pros, I returned a kickoff for 105 yards for a touchdown. I wasn't even supposed to come out of the end zone.
Which part of the stadium were you most successful in?
This part right here. I can remember the year that I gained 1,000 yards. I remember right here, I was stretching, and a guy who played for the Baltimore Colts, his name was Mike Curtis.
One of the great middle linebackers.
He came over to me, all the way from there, now in the midst of all of us, he goes, "You ain't making no record off me today."
When you started the season in '72, did you think perfection was possible?
We weren't looking for perfection, we were looking for redemption. It was so important that we redeem ourselves because the shame that had occurred in 1971 when we lost in Super Bowl VI.
Was Don Shula difficult to play for?
No. There was a different kind of echelon of people then, and Shula was just a tad over the blue-collar worker. He was in between Archie Bunker and Carl Malden.
Didn't you, after one Super Bowl, almost get in a fight with him?
Yeah, after Super Bowl VI.
What happened?
We got our ass handed to us, basically, 24-3 by the Cowboys, and I thought I should have played in the game, and I voiced that after the game. And so he comes up to me in the locker room, and he says that we get nose-to-nose like it was Gunsmoke. He said, "If I find out you said anything, you've had it." And then the next day, unprecedented, he called me up and apologized.
Why are you Mercury?
Because a sports writer in Amarillo, Texas, in 1966, he likened my style of running to the mercury in a thermometer. You know, you can't pick it up, the liquid you can't catch. Then in 1968, Life magazine came down and they did a piece, and they put the wings on my helmet and the wings on my shoes, and I became forevermore Mercury.
When did drugs come into your life, and when did your life start to take a turn for the worse?
During the late 1980s, Reeves took the Broncos to 3 Super Bowls in a 4-year span and was recognized as one of the top coaching minds in all of football. In 1993, Reeves moved on to New York and began the task of turning the Giants around.
Let's don't give them anything to let them get in this thing. Let's take it to the start, get after it for 60 minutes. Now, let's go. Get it.
In just his first season, Reeves' offensive flair helped the Giants win 11 games and return to the playoffs. In 1997, Reeves took on a huge rebuilding job in Atlanta.
When I looked at where we were and, you know, what was in front of me, if I looked at the overall picture, it overwhelmed me.
Gotta hustle, gotta hustle, gotta hustle.
Reeves focused all energies into turning the Falcons into winners.
You know, I wish I could tell you, boy, I had a master plan and I really knew what I was going to do. I really took it one day at a time. This is kind of an experiment of coming out in shells, okay? If we have the practice at the speed that we want, we'll do this more often, all right?
He was a player. He was in this situation before. You know, he was a rookie once before, and he was a veteran. He's been to Super Bowls, and he can call upon the experiences and exactly how he felt in this situation.
Yeah, the other thing is, in a cook thing tomorrow night, you know, catfish is deal. How many guys will not eat catfish? Okay, 1, 2, 3. But I mean, would you eat salmon if we had salmon?
Despite Reeves' work, Atlanta floundered in the first half of 1997 with 7 losses in 8 games. But Reeves stuck with the plan, and suddenly things began to go right for the Falcons.
Chandler rolling right, hit as he throws, and has a man open in the end zone anyway. Touchdown!
Atlanta finished by winning 6 of their last 8 games, and things looked bright going into 1998.
Johnson.
The Coach of the Year is brought to you by Staples, the office superstore. Low prices? Yeah, we got that.
He is doing a better job of coaching right now than I've ever seen and been exposed to him. It's almost like he's prepared himself all this time for right now.
27 years in coaching hasn't changed Reeves' professional approach.
He really holds you accountable. He's not a police officer, he's a coach. And he'll tell you, I'm not going to follow you around. He said, this is your responsibility, you get it done. If you don't get it done, we can find someone else to get it done, but this is your job.
And this is not a, one of those practical grab ass and, we're out here to accomplish something, in particular to do it to where we're accomplishing it from a speed standpoint, that the timing and everything's there.
He started with the little things. The little things.
The little attention to detail.
You take care of the little things, everything else will fall in place.
In 1998, the Falcons' emphasis on the little things resulted in big improvements.
I think the one thing that all leaders have in common is that they'll never ask you to do something that they aren't willing to do themselves.
He instilled a lot of discipline. This guy, he came in and believed in us, and things just took off from there.
Atlanta got off to a fast start, due in part to Jamal Anderson and a crushing running game. The winning attitude became contagious, and a whole new brand of bird was buzzing in the Georgia Dome. In no time, everybody was doing the dirty bird.
I come from the old school. I'd like for, guys to get in the end zone and, hand the ball to an official and act like they've, done that many times. But I do tell you this, it has been exciting for this football team.
Behind the excitement was a solid football team on both sides of the ball. By November, Reeves and the Falcons had surged to first place in the NFC West, a spot usually inhabited by the San Francisco 49ers.
We've gotten ourselves in a position now that I think our guys feel like they're going to win every week, and that's a good feeling to have.
We got a chance to go out there today to prove we're champions. Let's get after them from the start. Let's win this thing on 3. 1, 2, 3.
They always say, when you beat an opponent, they're always a little hungry in the second time around. I don't know what's going to happen. I know I'm hungry.
We're going to be number 1 after today. That's it. That's all what counts. Nothing else don't even matter.
On this day, years of Falcon frustration were unleashed upon the 49ers. In the scramble for first place, Atlanta would end up on top.
Play action. Chandler will throw. Buying time, going long, near side.
Because I am too. I feel you. Guys, that's a great win. I mean, we've gotten ourselves in position now with 6 games to go, and it's left up to us is what we do with it. We know how hard it was to get here. We're going to pay the price to keep it going from here.
Coach Reeves is having surgery right now. He had been experiencing chest pain over the last few weeks, and I think it was a little bit more severe yesterday on the sideline at the Saints game. And he went and had a angiogram this morning, and it was determined that he would need to have bypass surgery.
You're talking about a guy who has meant everything to this organization.
He's turned the whole thing around. Hopefully, people in this town now will start to recognize it and respond to this team and to what Dan has accomplished.
The guy up in Atlanta's already proud of you. Let's make him proud by winning today.
Needing a win to clinch the division, the Falcons staged a furious fourth-quarter rally to beat the Detroit Lions and pay their recovering coach the ultimate tribute. Just 4 weeks after bypass surgery, Reeves returned to the sidelines for the playoff rematch between the Falcons and 49ers.
Let's call something to happen. Guys, let's go for 60 minutes. Win this thing on 3. 1, 2, 3.
In an emotional coming of age, Reeves Falcons seized their finest hour by jumping ahead of the 49ers and never giving back the lead.
Sideline, ball is up for grabs. Who has it? Falcons have it, and the Falcons have won the football game.
The Falcons' rise to their first ever Super Bowl berth was a testament to their leader, Dan Reeves, the 1998 Staples NFL Coach of the Year.
Fox Sports Net thanks you for watching this presentation of the National Football League.
Not caught up in all the hype and the glamorization of his job. He allows you, the defense, to dictate what they're going to do on offense. Go back to last year's Super Bowl. The Broncos ran predominantly left at the pass rushing side, Gilbert Brown, Santana Dotson. What they ended up doing was trying to move that running game over to the right side, had a lot of success because the Packers overloaded on the other side. Dictating, allowing the other team to dictate what you do. Mike Shanahan has an answer and an antidote for everything that the Falcons will have an opportunity to show him. The key is, will those players accept it and use it to their advantage?
You talked X's and O's, you talked words, but both of them, I get the feeling from listening to the Broncos talk, they look forward to the challenge Mike Shanahan's going to bring every week in new wrinkles to the X's and O's and new words before each game.
You've never actually seen a team get more excited about game plan than the Denver Broncos when Mike Shanahan hands it to them earlier in the week. You know, if you played a game 3 or 4 years, you know what's going to work. So when they see that game plan, they watch a little bit of film, they know what's going to be successful.
And you know, Mike knows what he's going to say to those guys tomorrow, try to push the right button again. We still have an hour to go.
Sure we do.
So just stretch a minute. We're coming right back with more, including a conversation with John Elway, who talks about his legacy with TJ.
When you played John Elway, he didn't always play great, but you always got everything you had in the end. Tried to win every football game that I was in. And the most important thing to John Elway was winning.
The Bronco receivers, how good? We've got Chris Carter's impressions on Eddie Mack and company. And on the Atlanta side, Jamal Anderson on the low draft picks, the big backs on the big stage tomorrow. We're back on our stage right after this. Super Bowl week, we thank them for the hospitality. Where else can you hang out and have a boat show go on right behind you as we have throughout the week? Of the ties on opposite sides of the Super Bowl, one of the more intriguing ones, Ed McCaffrey, a career that has blossomed in his Denver years after being cut by Dan Reeves with the Giants 6 seasons ago, make it 5 seasons ago. Both had good things to say about each other this week.
I made a lot of mistakes in my life. That may be the biggest one I've ever made.
No coach ever has to admit he makes a mistake. No coach has to believe he made a mistake, and definitely years after the fact doesn't even have to address the issue. So just the fact that I've been acknowledged and that he made that comment, I mean, it really did mean a lot to me. I take that as a real big compliment.
Whenever you release somebody, you know, for whatever the reason you released him, you know, you always say, hey, I hope you go somewhere and show me that you're a good player, and Ed's really done that.
It's almost surreal. I mean, I think about when I was just praying to get on any kind of a team and just get a spot and not knowing for sure if I would get one, to go into the Pro Bowl a couple years later, and you know, now 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, couldn't have written a better script.
Well, really, McCaffrey's value was realized in San Francisco, winning that ring for Super Bowl 29. Going for his 3rd ring overall, 2nd straight, a very key member of the Broncos. 64 catches, 10 touchdowns this year. Speaking of touchdowns, we are honored to be joined by Chris Carter, Pro Bowler from the Minnesota Vikings. And let's pick your brain if we got you here. You've been on our sports centers during the week. The wide receivers for Denver. Give me your strength as a receiver. Ed McCaffrey, Rod Smith, how good are they? What do they do best?
Well, both receivers are very good. And the one thing that they provide for an offense is you can't key on one receiver. They don't have a short receiver as far as yardage and receptions and a long receiver. Both receivers are capable of going across the middle, working the sticks, picking up first downs, but also both the receivers can go deep. And both of them have deceptive speed. And I think Ed McCaffrey has kind of nixed the myth as far as the white receiver, and he deserves a lot of respect and is very underrated as a receiver, not like the other receiver we have on the program.
Well, I was just highly underrated as my years of playing it. Thank you.
Well, let's use our 2 NFC Pro Bowl receivers. Talk about the Falcon DBs. Buchanan and Bradford are the cornerbacks. William White, Eugene Robinson, their safeties. Let's not forget Michael Booker, the nickelback, who comes in very important. Now, when you lined up in the slot in the championship game, you caught 6 balls for 67 yards overall. How did they handle you in terms of rating them as defensive backs?
Well, I like them as defensive backs. I don't think they have a great secondary, but they have a good secondary. And the weak link in their secondary is Michael Booker. When they're going to guard Shannon in the slot, they're going to guard him a lot like they guarded myself. They're going to try to play him short and deep and play a lot of zone coverage. They realize that they cannot match up against Denver's explosive offense playing man-to-man, and the matchups are in Denver's favor. So you'll see a lot of zone defense in the ball game.
You know, I look at these receivers, to go back to them, the one thing I noticed about them, you talk about work in the middle, the receivers on both sides of the football are a product of the running game. Not saying they're not good players, but if both Atlanta and Denver shut down the run, I don't think these guys can go out and play one-on-one football and get wide open. I think Shannon Sharp may be the best one-on-one player on the field because he is so versatile, he can move around. When you look at the defensive backs, they are also a product of protection. That protection is a zone defense. They will line up in what we call box poach. It looks like a 4-cross defense. They are going to play you. If you go inside, if 2 goes away, the tight end, Shannon Sharp or O.J. Santiago go away, they're going to double the outside receiver. In Chris's case, I didn't think that the Minnesota Vikings utilized the 3rd wide receiver enough to allow him to get open. I think in this football game, whichever team uses the guy away from number 1, if Shannon is number 1, if Tony Martin's number 1, if the backside receiver is utilized, they are going to have a lot of success.
I think we're talking a lot about the passing game here for one reason. You got great running backs.
Yes.
What if you take them both away and make the other team win with the pass? Let's bring in Jaws. Ron, play out that scenario with us. Falcons commit to stop Terrell Davis. Broncos load up the line, hold up Jamal Anderson. Who has the advantage if this one has to be won in the air?
Well, when I look at the Atlanta secondary, I see one guy that jumps out at me, cornerback Ray Buchanan. He's a shutdown corner. And I found Chris Carter's comments very interesting because he talked about Michael Booker being the weak link in the secondary. And I think the Falcons realize that, so because of that, they give him help. And last week against Randy Moss, he was up tough in his face at the line of scrimmage with Eugene Robinson over the top. I expect to see a high percentage of that same coverage in this matchup in the Super Bowl. They'll take Ray Buchanan, put him on Rod Smith. Now they'll take Henry Crockett, a strong side linebacker, get on Shannon Sharp, tough the line of scrimmage with William White behind him. And because of Ray Buchanan's versatility, they're allowed to double cover other people, Mike.
We saw in the championship game, Atlanta's passing game won it for them in the second half. Denver's offense hasn't been in that situation much this year. Something interesting to watch tomorrow. Coming up, distant replay. Who will be the next coach to join the list of Super Bowl wins in Miami? A list started with Weeb Eubank, I should say. We'll remember the man who won 2 of the best games in league history in a little bit. Also, Chris Mortensen sit down earlier today with the coach who's been through this the most. Dan Reeves gets ready for his 9th Super Sunday, and the play that makes TDs score TDs for Denver. We'll show you what to watch for in the old toss when you come back. Miami and traffic is murder. Everyone's trying to get over to South Beach to get to the parties in Miami. Super Bowl Saturday night is a treat. It's fun to be in the city, and the view from above from the Goodyear blimp. Stars and Stripes down on this city, ready to host its 8th Super Bowl. Dan Reeves coaching in his 9th Super Bowl. Mort, you visited with Dan earlier today. We were sitting together yesterday at the press conference, and I think we were both struck with what Dan said. Considering 6.5 weeks removed from heart bypass surgery, he called himself being here the luckiest man alive.
Yeah, and I really think he feels like that. And that's why I thought I saw a much happier Dan Reeves this week than I think we saw in previous Super Bowls. But this has also been an interesting 2 weeks for Dan Reeves. A week ago, he opened those wounds there with that Mike Shanahan, John Elway relationship. And he did avoid opening it up again this week, but we got them to talk about it a little bit. Got them to talk about it a little bit more earlier today.
You know, I really thought our teams were ready, you know, in all three occasions. I really felt good about, you know, our chances. I don't know that you can ever tell. I never have, even as a player, as an assistant coach, as a head coach. I've never been able to relate practice to how we were going to play in a game. So I really don't know. I just know that our concentration has been good. The fact that we worked on Denver the week before, I think we're further along. As far as our game plan, guys are more comfortable with what we're doing. But you still got to be able to make the adjustments.
You said you weren't going to talk about Shanahan and Elway this week in terms of the controversy, and you held to that. Did you surprise yourself a little bit?
No, I mean, I knew I could do that. There wasn't a problem. You know, probably the biggest mistake I made, you know, was answering the question the first time. If you try to cooperate, you know, you can't win that situation. So, I mean, that's no problem whatsoever. As I said, the only thing that's going to cure that is time, and, you know, hopefully through the years, you know, it will go away.
Could there be a moment at the end of the game tomorrow where you feel like embracing John?
Well, let's just wait and see what happens. As I said, you know, athletics is a sporting event. You know, I mean, we look at it sometimes as a life and death situation. But to me, when the game is over, the game is over. You've done everything that you can to possibly win the game, but you've got to congratulate whoever won the football game and give them their due, you know, and then go on. So, you know, I got no problem with that. That's the way life ought to be. You know, you ought to be able to compete at things and still come away from the thing and still, you know, be friends.
I don't think that Dan Reeves and Mike Shanahan knew this, but at yesterday's press conference at the media center, NFL security made sure they did not cross paths at the hotel. They didn't want anything to happen, not that anything would happen. But I know in talking with Dan Reeves, I think this guy's been reading John Maxwell's books on leadership because he wasn't there just to lead a football team. He wanted to lead an organization. He knew, Tommy, that the Atlanta Falcons as an organization lacks self-esteem, and he has picked it way up.
Well, he certainly brought that. More than I've known Dan Reeves for 18 years, played for him for 6 years, and he has gone through a maturation process. I believe that his people skills were not great when he initially came to the Denver Broncos, and that was part of the problem between he and John Elway. The thing that he will bring to this game, and his team will bring to this game, Mike, is that they love him. And so that little bit of extra that you have when you play for your coach is what the Atlanta Falcons will have for them on Sunday.
Interesting what he said during his press conference. The biggest disappointment of the 3 Super Bowls and the couple with you guys was that the team didn't play its best. Yes. I think you may see that out of the Atlanta Falcons tomorrow. For more on Dan Reeves, here's Mike Wilbon of the Washington Post.
Mike, there are dozens of subplots at every Super Bowl, but all the best ones here seem to involve Dan Reeves. There's Reeves versus John Elway, Reeves versus Mike Shanahan, Reeves versus his own heart, and perhaps most important of all for tomorrow, Reeves versus the Super Bowl. Winning that last one would mean easing the tension caused by all the others, including his heart. As incredible as it is for Reeves to even bring the previously inept Falcons this far, a Super Bowl victory as head coach is about the only thing that can illuminate an already distinguished career. It's ironic that last year's sentimental favorite, Elway, is replaced this year by Reeves, and that it's Elway who can help hang a dubious distinction on Reeves. In 24 hours, he could join Marv Levy and Bud Grant as the only coaches to go 0-4 in the Super Bowl. But Reeves didn't leave a hospital sickbed to be runner-up. This is probably the best team he's brought to the Super Bowl. That the Falcons have played with a sense of urgency and efficiency for 11 straight weeks is reflective of their coach, who likely understands this is the biggest game of his career, Mike.
Well, Michael, tomorrow Dan Reeves becomes the first coach in a Super Bowl to face a team he once brought to the big game. The only parallel you can find is Weeb Ewbank, who coached the Colts in the '58 title game and then beat the Colts when he was the Jets head coach in Super Bowl III. As you know, Weeb Ewbank died this past football season at age 91. Ironically, perhaps the last game he saw in person, Jets at Colts. The coach of the 2 biggest wins in NFL history is tonight's Distant Replay.
He won the 2 most important games in pro football history and was the last coach to earn championships in different leagues. Towering achievements for this modest man with the unwieldy name.
Well, my younger brother tried to say Wilbur, and my mother was about the only one that used it. And my daughter said, I don't know why Grandma picked that name.
Do many people ever call you Ewbank?
Yes, I think they do a lot of times, Billy, but that isn't the one that bothers me much. It's some of those names they've called me throughout this 5 years when things didn't go right. That bothered me most.
Indeed, joyful moments were scarce when Weeb first took over the dreadful Colts in 1954.
I think that when Weeb Eubank came in and said it's going to take me 5 years, I think that Weeb was just saying something to satisfy the sports writers and to pacify the owner, because I can't believe that you ever could have projected that that team in 5 years was going to win ostensibly the greatest game ever played.
United gives to Amici. The Colts are the world champions. Amici scores.
As I look back now, I think Weeb was probably one of the great coaches of all time. He was a good organizer. He spent a lot of time, you know, during practice and a lot of preparation time.
He was just like a school teacher. And he did things that, you know, other coaches didn't know about.
He had all his halfbacks learn wide receiver positions, because, you know, at that time we only had 33, 35 guys on the team. So in case anybody went down, we always had backup. And this was through Weeb's genius.
Eubank was a calculating man who could also be emotional, something the giant Sam Huff, number 70, learned after tackling end Raymond Berry.
It was a league of hit. I didn't hurt him. And when I get up, Weeb Eubank punches me, and the little guy punches me up on the hip bone. You know, I didn't even really know what happened.
But he was swinging and punching and kicking and trying to get on Sam up. I don't like it. I don't like them trying to hurt our players.
But it was Weeb's gentle nature that led to his downfall with the Colts.
Weeb was just so nice that what eventually happened, some players start taking advantage of nice guys. And that's what happened with Baltimore. Some of the players start relaxing a little more than they should.
Fired from the team he had built from nothing, Weeb next revived the woeful Jets with strategies that revolutionized the way linemen protected the quarterback.
Coach Eubank had some really good things early on when it came to the passing game and pass protection technique. Coach Eubank believed in not letting our offensive line back up. But we believed in taking them on right now, which was absolutely different than the other pass protection schemes.
Eubank was equally innovative when it came to dealing with the free-spirited athletes of the 1960s.
Weeb was way ahead of his times as far as when people think of him being an old-fashioned coach. Weeb, when it came to the Super Bowl, had the Jet players bring their wives, which no one else had done at that time, to the Super Bowl. And he said, who better to check on the players than their wives? And let's hope the bachelors don't get too lucky.
On game day, Eubank eased the pressure on his 18-point underdog Jets with a bold locker room declaration.
I said, when we win this game, don't carry the old man off the field. Make a fireman carry and take me off gently, because you sure as hell hurt my hip the last game.
And a lot of guys' eyes popped open when he said that. You know, he didn't say if. He said when we win this game, and that meant a lot to a lot of the players out there that day.
Good footing down there. It is not good footing down. I come back the same thing.
Inside the 10-yard line, the handoff to Snell. He may go, and he's in there. Snell scores. This game is over. The New York Jets are the world champions in a stunning upset.
I've always said that I think Weeb Eubank was the finest football coach that ever coached the game. He took two of the worst teams that ever were in the NFL and made them world champions. Now, how much better can you be than that?
And speaking of coaches, a head coach looking for Super Bowl win 2, we relive Championship Sunday with Mike Shanahan.
Okay, strong right tight. Let's go with a Fox 2 all go. Just go. That's round 2. Felt good to win that AFC. But as we talked about before, there's one goal we've had from day one, and that's that Super Bowl. Enjoy the win, but we're coming back with one thing in mind.
Flow of the defense begins to outrun the running back. You want to get Terrell Davis back into the cutback lane. The free safety, Eugene Robinson, will not be blocked. But it's a matchup that the Broncos like and have liked all season. Terrell Davis on your free safety. One of the keys for this offense and their running game is Alex Gibbs, the line coach, offensive line coach, and his ability to adjust instantly. Not when you get to the locker room, Jaws, but adjust right now and help me out the next series.
You know, Tommy, I couldn't agree with you more. That is an offensive line that I would consider the best in football. And you mentioned Alex Gibbs. He's the guy that makes it happen. Now, as an offensive line, you got 5 different guys up there. It's not 5 individuals. To be successful as an offensive line, you have to play as one. Alex Gibbs has them playing that way, using their athleticism, using their instincts to come off those combination blocks and pick off the linebackers. In the AFC Championship game, that offensive line, combined with their 2 tight end formations, really got after the Jets with the power running game. You see the 2 tight end look. This tight end is Ed McCaffrey. It'll be toss left, with Davis following Howard Griffith. Focus on center Tom Nalen and right guard Dan Neal. They will double Jets tackle Jason Ferguson. Nothing unusual there. What makes this offensive line special is the timing and coordination they show in coming off the double teams and getting to the linebackers. Not only do Nalen and Neal push Ferguson 5 yards off the line, but look at Neal seal Brian Cox at just the right time. You clearly see that the blocks by Nalen and Neal create the cutback lane for Davis. Let's go back to the snap and focus on the play side. You'll see that the Jets' play side defenders move laterally. That creates no penetration and allows Davis to read his blocks and pick his hole in a comfort zone. If you play Davis laterally on the play side, that, added to how well the Broncos' offensive line cuts and seals the backside, will make it very difficult to control Terrell Davis. The key to stopping Davis is to get penetration from the defensive line. That means for the Atlanta Falcons, Travis Hall and Shane Dronette must get upfield, get that penetration, and try to blow things up in the backfield. Because what that will do, it'll allow Jesse Tuggle to scrape and get in the backfield. And when I study the running game of the Denver Broncos, there have only been a couple teams that have stopped this year. The San Diego Chargers were successful, and the Miami Dolphins in that Monday night game. And they were successful because their linebackers broke through, shot the gap, and made plays in the backfield before Terrell started running downhill. Sterling, the key to stopping him also, don't let him stretch the defense. If he gets running laterally, stretches the defense, he is unstoppable.
Well, Josh, what you just showed is that the Atlanta Falcons are in a no-win situation. So you look for them to run a lot of stunts, a lot of twists, so they can guess and fall into the cutback lane that Terrell Davis is trying to find. When you look at how on that play you just showed, how everybody on the offensive line turned left and started running. That is a track blocking scheme. What happens is it's not man-to-man, and the guy that you think is going to block you turns out not to be the guy that's going to block you at all. When talking to Shannon time and time again about their blocking scheme, he tells me this: our job and our job only is to get Terrell Davis the line of scrimmage. You think it's a little bit more than that?
Oh, I think it is a little more than that. They have assumed a tremendous responsibility, and that responsibility is to get Terrell not only through the line of scrimmage, but get him into the secondary untouched. And if he's able to get to the secondary of the Atlanta Falcons, because the Falcons will play 8- and 9-man fronts. You'll see certain defenses where Atlanta, well, they'll look like as if they have 5 linebackers. Well, you'll see Wim White and Eugene Robertson close to the line of scrimmage, and they want their defensive linemen and their linebackers to get a hit on him before they see him.
And as your guy found out, Robert Smith, that Falcon defense is not easy to run against. Atlanta yielded just 3.3 yards per carry this year. Look at that top line on the left there. That was second in the NFL to San Diego, which had the best run defense this year. Means the Broncos' rushing defense allowed a yard less per carry compared to last year. A drastic difference and improvement. One of the improvements this year for Mike Shanahan's team, getting them back to the Super Bowl. You know, each team has 15 different matchups, so there are 225 possible Super Bowl matchups, AFC against NFC. Well, you couldn't have a matchup of coaches with more Super Bowl experience than what we have tomorrow. Reeves ready for his 9th, Shanahan is 6th. And what does that mean? It means the head coaches are not going to be overwhelmed by the hype and the situation tomorrow, just like Shanahan handled the AFC title game, as we hear in tonight's soundtracks.
Come on, Bobby, get it there, would you? These defensive coordinators they're in hog heaven. John, your wind's pretty strong, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, sole right up short, past 18 handoffs, Vinny cross. 18 Bob, 19 handoffs, sole right. Near left, 15 jab.
Toss left side.
Hit it.
Terrell squares, he's got the first down, and a big hole. Terrell, 15, 10, touchdown!
All right! Let's go. goal you could get here. Let's just go with a hard, try to get a hard count, and go with strong right or strong left tight. 19 handoff force. Try to draw them off sides. We'll go for it on a 4th down. Hey, DD, get him going. Get him going again.
Again, the shotgun.
Come on, baby, come on.
And again, the 3-man rush. Testaverde fires over the middle. Pass deflected and intercepted again. Darian Gordon, second of the game.
DG, I'm proud of you, man. That was a hell of a play. Hell of a play. Great job. I'm telling you, all-timer. I'm glad I taught you how to catch that ball. Okay, strong right tight. Let's go with a Fox 2 all go. Just joke, just joke, just joke.
And the Denver Broncos are going back to the Super Bowl. They are AFC champions for the second consecutive year.
All right, dude. Way to go. Great job, baby. Well, we talked about this before. That's round 2. Felt good to win that AFC, but as we talked about before, there's one goal we've had from day one, and that's that Super Bowl. Enjoy the win, but we're coming back with one thing in mind, and that's that second ring.
Trying to stand in their way, Jamal Anderson. Effectiveness not limited to running the ball. We will talk about that when we come back. And Tommy visits with John Elway, who talks about the different paths that could have determined a far different sports future. Sorry, but more. Let's talk some issues around the league here and get away from the Super Bowl teams for a moment. Let's start with Reggie White. Pro Bowl, we've said it's going to be his last game. Is that a definite that will be Reggie's last one?
I don't think so, Mike. Not definite yet. He says he's 99.9% sure he is going to retire. Now, he's moving his ministry to Charlotte, North Carolina, but he is keeping a home in Green Bay. And in the past couple of weeks, he has met several times with Ray Rhodes, the new head coach of the Packers, as well as defensive coordinator Emmett Thomas. They are trying to sell him on one more year. Reggie is basically saying he's pretty sure he's finished. I can tell you this, if he does come back, it'll have to be under his current contract, which has 2 years left on it. The Packers are not going to offer him any incentive in terms of money to come back.
Remember, he was left on the unprotected list for the Cleveland expansion draft, which happens in 10 days. Reggie's old coach, Mike Holmgren, not only bringing a few friends from Green Bay from the coaching staff, bringing a lot of other people from Packerland out to Seattle in the Northwest.
Yeah, well, he has Paul Allen's bank account, apparently, and he's been writing a lot of checks, and he's taken, apparently, 13 employees, assistant coaches and other front office employees. And I have to tell you, it's creating some ill feelings in the Packers organization. To the standpoint that I had a front office person tell me the reason we let Mike Holmgren go to be a general manager and coach was so he could start his own organization, not steal ours. So I know that Mike is a little upset with that characterization, but that's what it is. And one last note on the, Mike Holmgren. It looks like Warren Moon is going to come back and play one more year in Seattle. They're going to restructure his contract. That's what Warren wants to do, and it looks like that might get worked out, Mike.
Mike Holmgren, the Seahawks coach next year, with Warren Moon there perhaps. Speaking of Warren Moon, former University of Washington great, the word Washington around this town this week means trouble, because the Washington Redskins and their ownership issue, Chris, may be as clouded as we've seen heading into an offseason for a team that has a lot of work to do.
Well, it does. Howard Milstein, who made the $800 million bid for the Redskins, met, along with the trustees of the Jack Kent Cooke estate, with the Finance Committee, which has several owners on it. Some of those owners, like Tom Benson of New Orleans, are upset that John Kent Cooke was not awarded this team when the bidding was at $680 million. They felt that the bidding could have been shut down at that point. This league wants to pick its own owners. Now, one other note on this thing. When Milstein was involved in the Cleveland franchise expansion process, he apparently bent some noses. Some people thought his politics behind the scene were not what this league wants. Now, I think he's going to get this team, but they're going to make him jump through some hoops to do that, I think, Mike.
If you are a Redskins fan, you're wondering, when is this going to get cleared up? It will be interesting to watch their moves this offseason. Mort, back to you before we're done. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Falcons and Jamal Anderson. Another way, besides his great running ability, he could be effective against the Broncos tomorrow. As everybody's just kind of relaxed and enjoying the night, far different from what the players feel before Super Bowl 33 kicks off. Well, what? In less than 21 hours. Stars and stripes for our aerial views of Miami on this gorgeous moonlit night. Goodyear blimp commercial airship operation began way back in 1926 with the Pilgrim. We're glad Stars and Stripes is helping us out on this Super Bowl Saturday night. Jamal Anderson's 12 100-yard games, NFL record 410 carries, and a total of 1,846 yards. Great accomplishment for a back taking number 201 in the draft 5 years ago. He, like his opposite number, Terrell Davis, picked 196 in the 95 draft. Low picks on the top level now.
For one reason or another, I was drafted, pick number 201. It's a constant motivator because people continuously say what you can't do or what you were not supposed to do, or these are the things that, well, you're not. These guys shouldn't actually be achieving these things. I mean, where Terrell is and where I am this year, so it's definitely always right there, kind of in the back of my mind.
Chris Mortensen, the Terrell Davis, Jamal Anderson angle, 1-2 in the league in rushing. You were around Jamal a lot covering the Falcons this week. Got the true sense that, like the rest of the year, he enjoyed being in the spotlight.
Oh, this guy ate it up. I think the national media was just amazed at how personable and tireless this guy was in terms of just discussing his year. However, I think in visiting with him, he was stung by a little bit of the criticism from the Minnesota Vikings game that some people felt he didn't run tough enough, that he went down with too many solo tackles. I think he does have something to prove. You're a tough guy if you can carry the ball 400 times like he did and go for 1,800 yards. And TJ, I know that he expects to get in the end zone because he is working on a new version, has been working on a new version of the Dirty Bird dance.
Well, Mort, he gets the yards, but he and Terrell Davis are two very different backs. If you watch Jamal Anderson, he doesn't run downhill like Terrell Davis. Watch this little skip right there in the backfield before he hits the hole. He searches for the hole. Once he gets through, he's capable of making big plays. He's got good speed downfield. He's a powerful guy once he gets into your secondary, but he's not the punishing, aggressive runner that Terrell Davis is. And if one of these defenses is going to get worn down in the fourth quarter, it's a lot more likely to be the Atlanta Falcons, Sterling, than the Denver Broncos.
Well, what the Atlanta Falcons have done is found out another way to use Jamal Anderson. The Green Bay Packers have created a monster by bringing back the screen. It's an opportunity. It's a long handoff, and I can show you on the ESPN pre-play coming up right here. What you'll see is an opportunity to keep Chris Chandler from taking a hit. You'll see the fullback, the halfback right here are going in motion. They'll switch positions with Jamal Anderson. He'll be the back in the backfield. When the guard leaves, the fullback goes with him. You got to back out in the screen. Now, if you look at the game from last year, Atlanta and Denver, what you get an opportunity to see is the quarterback right here make this throw right here, an opportunity for Jamal Anderson, where I think he is best one-on-one. Look at the screenplay last year, 97 game in Atlanta versus Denver versus a blitz. They still get it off. Jamal Anderson one-on-one with your secondary. This is not the picture the Denver Broncos want to come out of this football game with. It's an opportunity for him to get in the football game if the run is being shut down. If you look at the Denver Broncos defense, though, they will be ready for the screenplay in this football game.
Yes, I think they learned a lot from that film. But also there's another game that they're going to look at an awful lot, and that is the game last year's Super Bowl, where they were able to contain Dorsey Levens in the Super Bowl game, where he had 19 rushes for 90 yards. He didn't have the big explosive plays that he had during the regular season. And that's what they're going to be trying to avoid. The defenders for the Broncos do not want to see Jamal in the end zone doing any new Dirty Bird.
The new Dirty Bird version can wait, as far as they're concerned.
They're going to see a little bird.
A little bird.
They don't want to see much.
Or multiple times. You're right. That is true. Business is all that's on the mind of the players without question tonight. But as you've seen from some of our shots of South Florida, fun is on the mind of the non-participants. Let's check in once again with Stu Scott, who earlier today was at Agent Lee Steinberg's Super Bowl bash.
Michael, we're back here with Warren Moon, the man tied with Johnny Unitas, fourth on the all-time list of touchdown passes with 290. But if you include your CFL touchdown passes, then you're number one in pro football, right?
I've done pretty well over the years. You know, when you can last 21 years in professional sports, you're doing pretty good, and I feel very blessed to even be around now.
Now, we used to joke with you on the Edge Matchup show, you know, every week you got older. 63-year-old Warren Moon, 81-year-old Warren Moon. How do you do it? You know, in a league full of young guys trying to take your head off, how do you keep getting back there and doing it?
I think that's what drives me, the young guys. They keep teasing me about my age all the time, all the old man, this and that. And I've always been a guy that's been driven by challenges. People told me that I could never make it to this league, so that made me want to get here even more so. And as the young guys tell me that I'm getting too old, that makes me keep going. So I owe a lot to them. I owe a lot to them that keep me in this game and keep me playing at the level that I keep playing at.
John Elway trying to win what might be his last game, the Atlanta Falcons in their first Super Bowl. How do you see this game?
Well, you know, it's going to be important for Atlanta to stay close early. The thing that really impressed me about them against Minnesota is that the game almost got out of hand early, and they were able to creep back in it somehow. I don't think you can do that against Denver because they're not going to make as many mistakes as I think as Minnesota did and let them get back in the game. So if they can stay close early, their confidence is just going to rise as the game goes along. And who knows, you know, they could pull the upset. I really feel good about this Atlanta team. They have this never-say-die attitude about them, and they really are playing with a lot of confidence right now.
All right, Warren, I appreciate it. Third on the all-time passing yardage list. But again, that's NFL yardage. You count his CFL yards, and Warren Moon more yards passing than any man ever in pro football. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Mike, back to you.
Well, Stu, when you're talking numbers, he's the man. John Elway talks about the Reeves factor, and no questions about those days for number 7.
I did everything that he wanted me to do, and I was a good soldier and then busted my tail for him. I can honestly say there wasn't a game that I didn't step on the field that I was playing for Dan and give him everything I had.
The comments of John Elway talking to the guy who virtually raised him in this league, Tom Jackson, as we continue from Miami Arena at Bayside Marketplace on the Super Saturday edition of Monday Night Countdown. September of '83, first game at Mile High against Ron Jaworski's Eagles. Look at Elway, 19 yards on the scramble despite the helmet-removing hit. First career touchdown pass came in that game as well, 33 yards to Ricky Parros, the running back, although the Broncos lost to Jaws and the Eagles 13-10. Did you know then that the opposite number had greatness in that number 7 jersey?
Oh, Mike, absolutely. You know, and John came in as a much-celebrated rookie, and that was my 10th year in the league. And as we're warming up, I kept looking over my shoulder to take a look at this guy, and I'm watching him drop back and just, whoa, man, these lasers just flying out of his arm. And you can see he was a real special talent. But a play that we just saw on that promo right there was when John ran out of the pocket, and we had a safety, Wes Hopkins. I mean, he was a missile. He wanted to tear people's head off. In fact, he tore John's helmet off on that play. But that showed me something about John Elway, the toughness he had. Yes, he had the ability to throw the football, but he had the toughness that only comes from your belly and from your own heart. And Tommy, that's why he is such a fierce competitor. He has it all.
Yeah, Jaws, I actually raised John Elway from a puppy. He was a skinny kid who came from Stanford. He had a fair to middling arm and good footwork, but I had to teach him how to run out of bounds so he wouldn't get hit like that. Look, when you play 16 years a quarterback in the NFL, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. And John Elway has had lots more ups than downs.
When I made that decision back then that I was going to stick to it, and you know, it was a decision that I had to make. It was not popular at the time, but made the decision because I thought it was best for me and my then future going to be wife, and it ended up that it worked out for everybody, and I ended up here in Denver.
Baseball. What if you had played baseball?
Well, I don't know. Baseball was something I didn't spend nearly as much time on as I did football, and I had some good years playing baseball, but it was never my focus. Football was always my focus. Then when the Yankees drafted me and I played that year of summer ball, I always felt that if I spent the time, that I had a chance to be a pretty good baseball player, but my heart was with football.
If you could change one thing in your career, what would it be?
Probably the thing that's the toughest thing, that's probably the biggest black spot on my career is my relationship with Dan. And yeah, I wish that could work out. I wish we never had to go through that, and you know, it wasn't pleasant for anybody. It's not a fun thing to talk about, and because Dan's a good person, and you just hate the way to see that come out. So I guess if I could change one thing, I'd change that.
Perfect ending to Sunday's game.
Broncos ahead. Now, however that, you know, if it's, I'm not sure that, you know, the stress, and you talk about it be exciting to, you know, throw the last pass and have that one be the winning touchdown. That's right.
Hold the pose.
And so, I mean, that would be, it might be hard on the heart, but if we could script it that way, I'd much rather have it, you know, where we've done all year is get out ahead, but I think the perfect one would be able to throw that last one on the last gap going down on the sideline, tiptoeing the sidelines, whip it back across field, and that's...
You know, for those of us who played with John Elway, what separates him from a lot of quarterbacks is his tremendous will to win. There's been a lot of talk this week in Miami about the Atlanta Falcons forcing John Elway to be the guy to beat them. I think that Mike Shanahan feels very comfortable going with the quarterback, as we saw the numbers earlier in the show, who has won more games than anybody who's ever put on a helmet.
I'm glad John was honest with you. Hey, the great last play would be across the body, the touchdown. Of course, every player, you've told me over and over, I'm sure you feel, you want to make the big play in the big game, and there's no bigger stage than tomorrow. Is there danger in wanting to make the big play and want to go out as the champ and the hero in the John Elway situation, because this very well could be his last game?
Absolutely, Mike. Let me give you some numbers. 58 completions of 123 passes, 2 touchdowns, 7 INTs in the Super Bowl, only 792 yards throwing the football. Let's face it, John Elway has not played very well in Super Bowls. Not to mention Dan Reeves standing on the opposite sideline. This would be a wonderful opportunity and a dangerous situation for John Elway and Mike Shanahan to go out and try to win this game throwing the football. I know John has been in the league and has seen and done it all. This is an opportunity to do what he's done so well the last 2 years. That is, get them out of bad plays and make sure that the guy behind him, number 30, gets as many carries as he can.
Yeah, he needs a lot of carries, but the one thing that Elway has to remember is he does not have to go out and lead this football team. This is not John Elway's football team, even though there are people who want to believe that. This has been Terrell Davis's football team for 2 years. It's up to Elway to make 5 big plays in the ball game and help keep the drives alive, because they have a nice tailback that's going to lead them.
And it's not just pass plays, it's scrambling as part of those big plays for Elway. Chris Mortensen, 90% likely it's the last game. What's the Broncos' approach on John Elway and the future at that quarterback position?
Well, Mike Shanahan doesn't need John Elway to make a quick decision. He's ready to go with Bubby Brister, with Jeff Lewis and Brian Greasy backing him up. But some people close to Elway have told me that the competitor in John Elway cringes a little bit to think that it would be Bubby Brister going for that cherished three-peat, Mike.
You know, Chris, when we talk about great performances in Super Bowls and quarterbacks, these are the starting quarterback numbers, career. All these guys, the top 5 on the list, none of those guys ever lost a Super Bowl that they started at quarterback. Now, if you go further on the list, you'll find John Elway, and we also find our ESPN colleagues, Mr. Theismann, Kelly, Jaworski, and Mr. Esiason, who joined us earlier, just to point out that the ratings in the big games do matter when it comes to Super Bowls, but we love those guys anyway, don't we?
Yes, we do.
When we come back, predictions for Super Bowl 33. Oh, the little kids here at Bayside doing the Dirty Bird. Will the Falcons be doing the Dirty Bird at Pro Players Stadium tomorrow? How good are our coordinating producer, Bruce Kaufman, our producer, Cameron Penn? These guys brought out some fireworks for us to end the season with a bang on Monday Night Countdown. We'll enjoy those for a few seconds as we say thank you to everyone who's helped us Super Bowl week here in Miami and all season with our show. All right, pick time. Mr. Mortensen, you start first.
Right, I see some fireworks in this game with Morton Anderson winning it, just like he did in the NFC title game. Jaws, instant replay back.
All right, probably will be back, but Mort, I see the speed of Tony Martin creating matchup problems for the Denver secondary. Martin has a big day. It's a nail-biter, but Atlanta wins 24-23, Chris.
Watch out for the old funky chicken in downtown Miami. Atlanta 27, Broncos 24.
Broncos 37, Falcons 21, and I don't think I really need to explain this pick.
I don't need to explain my pick either, TJ. I like the Broncos 25-19 because the Super Bowl ring I wear was given to me from last year's champ, and I need another one. Get a ring. I got one.
You are greedy, for God's sake. Thank you for joining us, Chris. It was a lot of fun. Here's my pick, Broncos 31, Falcons 19. We thank you for joining us. Don't forget, tomorrow, Sunday, NFL Countdown. We're with you for 2.5 hours of more fireworks. It will be a lot of fun, and we will enjoy. Thank you for watching. For Mort, Jaws, Sterling, Tommy, guys, thanks for a great year of the show. See you guys. See you tomorrow. Stay tuned. The Australian Open tennis final is next. Good night from Miami.
Sort of storybook finish. Dan Reeves trying to win his first Super Bowl as head coach in 4 tries, just 7 weeks after quadruple bypass surgery on his heart. And for the first time ever, the top 2 runners in the NFL are facing off in the Super Bowl. Terrell Davis now has 2,374 yards. Jamal Anderson now has 2,026 yards. Tommy,
this just in there good.
Well, this just in there good, and this just in not too bad for guys picked 196th and 201st in their respective drafts.
Well, with all the millions of dollars spent on scouting and the NFL combines, it's hard to believe that Jamal and Terrell were missed as long as they were in the NFL draft. But the irony is that today in Super Bowl 33, they will be the focus of both teams.
Do you know how many running backs were drafted before you?
I can name a few.
Yeah, I can name some of them.
James Stewart.
Daniel Bennett went before me.
I know Napoleon Kaufman was one.
Dorsey went before me.
Oh, yeah, Kajana Carter.
Marshall Faulk.
2 James Stewarts, I believe.
Jamal Anderson, 1,846 yards rushing this season. 24th running back picked in the 94 draft. Terrell Davis, 2,008 yards rushing this season. 21st running back picked in the 95 draft. Why?
If you look at my stats in college, I mean, come on, man, I have 400-something yards rushing. I didn't play much.
I heard a lot of people saying, well, you're kind of a tweener.
I ran a 4.7 at the combine.
You're big enough to be a fullback, but you don't block like one, and you're not quite a tailback.
Is it a motivating factor for you?
To me, I think that it kind of hurt me because a lot of people said I couldn't play the game.
It does drop me. I think you never forget what position you were taking. I mean, people don't let you forget, really. Regardless of what you do, it always, trace back basically to your roots.
Every time I go out there and there's coaches and there's scouts that I know that said some things about me, my motivation is to go out there and prove them wrong.
Handoff Davis, here we go. 25, 20, touch to his left, 15, 10, 5, Davis to the pylon. Is he in? Yes! Touchdown, Denver!
Is there a parallel between you and Jamal Anderson in terms of the way you play the game?
That's a big man. I'm not as big as Jamal.
He's much faster than me. He is.
He's a big guy, but he's kind of swift on his toes.
I think he's a great open field runner.
But I try to be a power runner as well.
I may try to run through you.
What we try to do is try to wear people down late in the game and let them know that it's going to be like this all day.
We have the same mentality in the way we play. I'm just a little thicker.
You guys talk?
We call each other up. Like, say we played Miami, and I called him up that week, and I asked him, give me something about Miami's defense. Tell me what you see. And so he pointed out a few players and said that, if you do this to this player, he's going to do this. You might want to stay away from him. You might want to treat him like that. So, I kind of asked him for advice, and I kind of gave him the same advice for teams that we played, that they were going to play. So it kind of works out a little.
You see what he's done, and I'm just like, wow, it's unbelievable. You want to be like Terrell Davis. You want to do the things he did and make people second guess why they drafted you, what they did.
It was clear in last year's Super Bowl when the Green Bay Packers took a quick 7-0 lead, the Denver Broncos countered